All right. Welcome to Simply Technical, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your hosts, Evan, and I'm joined here with Keaton again as your other co host. It is December 31st, 2022, and we're kind of going to give a little bit of our ideas of what 2023 is going to look like. And maybe I'd say a lot of mine are going to be okay, it could happen in 2023, but wouldn't be surprised 2024, 2025, something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know if you, I
yeah.
don't know if
Same,
yours are
same with
strictly
mine. I mean,
23.
I'll say mine are more off the cuff, kind of wild predictions. But yeah, sort of similar. It could happen in the next few years if it
And
does happen at all.
we're kind of intending for the episode not to be super long, but I feel like we could ramble on about some of our topics for quite some time, actually, or at least
Yeah,
I could. But sometimes I just like to hear myself talk. um, so 2022 been a good year, but we're gonna kind of start off here with housing and I guess general economy. But I say we start focused on the housing situation. Keenan and I looked it up before the podcast that the moratorium, mortgage delays and rent delays ended in 2021 unless you have an FHA loan. Is that right, Keaton?
I think in general,
In
yes.
general, and so kind of like one of my predictions is it's going to be difficult for. I don't think it's going to collapse. I think the housing market's actually going to get stronger as far as more people are going to be renting, and so more businesses and such are going to be purchasing homes and renting them out. Um, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I actually don't think the. I mean, a lot of people think that the housing market's going to collapse, but my, sort of uneducated opinion is it's. I don't think it's going to collapse because the interest rates are so high right now, and that's. I mean, generally that's why people think it's going to collapse. But because so many people bought homes in the last few years at such a low interest rate, no one's going to be looking to move. So the supply, even though the demand is going to go down because of interest rates, the supply is also going to go down. So I think it kind of just stays steady, and I sort of think that's what we've been seeing, especially in Oklahoma. I mean, maybe in some of the way more inflated markets like California, some places in Texas have started to go down, but I mean, our house's estimated price just keeps going up every single time they raise interest rates. I'll check like a month or two later, and it's still steadily climbs up. I always expect it to fall, but it hasn't yet. So that's sort of my general take on the housing market.
Yeah, well, I mean, here in Oklahoma, at least, I can't speak for other places. Some of my friends are still looking to buy. They're currently renting, but they're talking about how people are. It's not going above asking price anymore. I mean, the prices are
Mm-hmm.
still a lot higher than they were 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Um, but people are going below the asking price. There's a little bit more negotiation involved. Newer houses, though, I mean, they're negotiating more in the fact of like, hey, I can take care of your closing costs, or um, we can put, give you a little bit extra down payment on your house. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of negotiations are still going on, which were prevalent before this huge spike, but now
Yeah, it's
when
definitely not a frenzy anymore. I think
oh
it's just kind of like a. I think that the next year is just going to be kind of steady. Maybe some markets drop, but I think it's just going to be a steady climb in a lot of areas. Unless, I mean, if the Fed cuts interest rates, which I don't necessarily think would happen this year, then I think it shoots right back up to a frenzy again. So I don't know. They're in like a really strange position where they you kind of want the housing market to collapse because it's priced out so many people, but also that's so politically and economically unpopular that I just can't imagine that they will push for it or try to get it to happen. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip, but
yeah, I mean, new houses, they've been going steady. I mean, a lot of the supplies and stuff are going to come down, so hopefully new prices come down. But I mean, even back in August when I purchased my home, it it had steadied out quite a bit. I mean, people weren't asking way over
yeah.
market value. I mean, there's a house for sale in my neighborhood right now that's at the same price per square foot that mine's at, and so it's been on the market for 2 months now.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it's slowed down quite a bit. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, my house is the nicest on the block, but it's definitely slowed down quite a bit, especially at this higher price point. I guess you would say higher price per square foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you.
I was gonna say, how does housing necessarily reflect the general economy for 2023?
Okay, that was kind of where I was going to go, but I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I guess when what I'm going to talk about more is like the stock market itself. I don't really think that we see a recovery because 2022 has been down. Obviously, it's been one of the worst years on record, and I don't think 2023 is going to change much, just for the similar aspect of the interest rates being like so high, but also I guess sort of normal. they're kind of like normal interest rates. I think the last 10, 20 years have been ridiculously low and have overly inflated everything, and I think it's kind of just going to keep slowly deflating.
Well, when my dad bought one of, I don't know if it was his first house or one of his first houses. I mean, his interest rate, he was buying in the 80s, I think. So his interest rate was like 15%. So like it's not the highest we've ever seen. Now, granted, like you said, the general economy has been quite a bit down year. Stocks, I mean, I think my 401k is like down 15%. So
yeah.
So it's just been a general down year. I don't see I mean, inflation obviously is still high, and I don't necessarily see inflation going down any.
Well, I think relative inflation is going to go down for sure because it's just kind of math. I don't think inflation is going to go up anymore because the inflation numbers that we see are year over year inflation. So, if we compared inflation right now to last year, I don't know. I didn't see what the inflation numbers were for December, but they went down slowly. But like last year's inflation number was 8 or 9%, and so we have to be 8 or 9% above, or we have to be above that per year. So if we have a 3% increase, then that's essentially like, I mean, the math doesn't exactly align here, but just to make it dumb math, that's like 11% over 2 years. So it's a little bit harder. The inflation numbers don't look as extreme on the outside over the next year, but it still doesn't tap down to that 2% level that I think the Fed usually shoots for.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like loans and stuff, I mean, if your loan is less than inflation, you shouldn't be paying extra money into it. But when inflation is, I mean, it's still high. I mean, the average person is still paying, quite a bit more now for the same goods they were, I mean, last year, the year before.
Yeah, it was definitely way more noticeable last year. I actually was thinking just the other day. I didn't do any official math. It was like back at the hand, quick addition. But I didn't think my grocery bill recently has been quite as much as it was a few months ago. So I don't know if that's just sort of what I buy had a bit of a shortage before or not, or if that's generally reflected in the market. But it feels not as extreme as it did last year at this time. Like last year at this time, I distinctly remember it just being disgusted at how much I was spending every week on groceries compared to 2020, 2021, early 2021. So I mean, especially compared to 2020, I think I did like I added up all my grocery bills and from 2020, early 2020, and compared the 2022 early grocery bills, and it was a lot more than the whatever 10%, 9% increase that are reflected in the CPI.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily notice it as much in my grocery bill. But when I was eating out, man, like I'll
Oh
use
yeah.
Cane's as an example. I ate Cane's quite a bit. We lived next to a Cane's before I moved. We lived next to Cane's for 2 years, 3 years, and it was like the same meal. It was $8.50 or whatever before, $9. Ended up being like 11 or 12, and it's
Yeah,
like,
Cane's
okay,
is like a freaking sit down restaurant price now. It's ridiculous.
yeah, spending $10, $12 a person now is like, okay, well, and because of that, I haven't been to Cane's in probably 6 months, so
Yeah. Yeah.
no one recommends it anymore. And I mean, Cane's is obviously just like a subsection of that. Restaurants in general are up, but the Cane's is what I noticed substantially.
Yeah, I also noticed Canes. That seems a little bit artificial, but yeah, I definitely noticed Canes, and I noticed all the fast food restaurants. They seem to, you kind of have like multiple levels of restaurant
Mhm.
tier pricing, and it seems like the general fast food like Chick-fil-A, Canes is basically as much as a a basic sit down restaurant was 2 years ago, and it's really ridiculous. I'm like, and even now, even at sit down restaurants, what you spend an extra dollar on your meal compared to Cane's. So why not just go to the sit down restaurant? Is kind of my new philosophy on eating out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say there's fast food, there's casual dining, sit down dining, and then like luxury, I guess, is probably. I'm sure luxury went up slightly, but maybe I don't know the numbers on the back end, of course, but maybe they have a little bit more profit that they can eat into.
I don't know. I actually think. I mean, I have heard this. I really have no idea, but I heard this before that the margins on high price restaurants are a lot of times lower than a
A lot more
regular
so.
restaurant. I don't know why. I guess the ingredients they buy are just that much better.
I
But
guess you pay for maybe more freshness.
yeah,
Um, and your employees have to be, a lot better cooking than somebody
yeah,
that
yeah.
just
That's
mixes
very
water
true.
with your beans at
Yeah,
Taco Bell. So, um, I guess that makes sense. The which a bunch of those restaurants are going to close down now locally,
yeah.
right? Steak
You know,
Experience.
speaking of this, just to add on this topic, what is with the ridiculousness of like the tip culture in that's like emerged in the last 2 years? Is it like every single place you ask
And
for a tip?
I
I go
think,
to I imagine like Target or something that in the next year or two is going to be like, all right, do you want a tip?
were you satisfied with your bagger?
Yeah, like
Tip 10%.
pay your freaking employees more.
Um, I think a lot of it has to do with just more people are using Square, and um, I don't think it's necessarily them like wanting tips, I guess, or them expecting tips.
Yeah.
But I think it's Square, is starting to take off a little bit more, and a lot of those businesses like food trucks and stuff, are using that Square one, and then the Square like tablet that they have.
Mhm.
They flip around. Um, I think more of those places are using that because, like, I mean, I bought donuts a couple years ago, before going into work. Last one to work, gotta bring donuts. So I bought donuts, and they were like, they flipped it around as tip, and I was like, you just literally picked the donuts out of the
Yeah.
and put them in the bag or put them in the container. I guess 10%, and that was really where it hit me. It was the beginning of that. I was like, I've never tipped somebody that gave me a donut before, but okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's every single restaurant where the restaurants where you just walk in and order at the front and leave. Now every single one of those ask if you want a tip, and I'm like, I mean,
Well,
no, I
okay, so
don't
like
really want a tip.
at a place like Fuzzy's,
Yeah,
do you tip at a? Maybe that's too personal. Do you tip at a place like Fuzzy's?
I
Like if you
tip.
just ordered food?
I tip at places that I frequent
Okay.
only. I mean, of course, I always tip casual dining, but like those type of places where it's order at the front, I tip only if I frequent the place because I don't want them to recognize me and be like, "Oh, this guy sucks."
Social pressure.
Yeah, yeah. And
um,
if I do tip, or if I don't if I don't frequent the place and I feel like tipping, it's usually not very much. It's like a yeah, it's straight up a social pressure thing. Like, oh, I don't want to be a jerk.
So at the place I work, they bring in food trucks every day actually. Um, so like usually at the beginning of the week, I'll like look at the food trucks for the week. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna cook, or I've cooked for 4 days, so one of these days I'm gonna go and eat at a food truck. And they have two food trucks, and they're like back to back, and like the entrances, I guess, or the windows for the food trucks are facing each other, and they like line up. Like people will line up after they order and wait for their order. Well, like the food truck is a little bit taller than me, and they'll flip the thing around, and I'm like, people are watching me, seeing if I'm going to tip or not.
Yeah, like
And
everyone can
you're
see.
already paying expensive for a food truck. You're paying like
Yeah.
$16, $15 for a food truck. And then it's like, hey, do you want to tip 15%? And of course, they're 15%, 20%, and 25% or some 22%. And it's like, you're like, I'm already paying overpriced, and you're wanting me to tip. And people behind me are watching. Sure.
Yeah, I saw what I if that happens, I just do the custom. I hit $1, and that's what I give. I saw one recently that was like, it had the three options, and it was 18, 22, and 30, and I was like, what? This is ridiculous.
Well, I think, do they set it themselves? I'm sure they set it
I don't
themselves,
know.
or
I
they
guess
probably have a
so.
default. They probably have a
Yeah.
default. Like, do you want to ask the default questions?
Yeah.
So I tip at food trucks mainly for social pressure, and then obviously, like if there's a waiter or waitress, I will tip. But like a place like Fuzzy's, okay, they pick up my trash when I'm done. I got to go up to the window and get it myself. They take my order. I guess if you get a drink, like obviously you should probably tip your bartenders. That's more of a waiter waitress service.
Yeah.
But like if I didn't get a drink, like no, I'm not gonna tip you. Like all you did was take my order, and then I had to go up to the window to get the food myself, and you took my trash. Like
Yeah.
maybe you should be making $10 an hour instead of the relying on tip culture, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe I'm off the rails. Let me know in the comments.
I mean, Europe survives without all the tip culture.
Yeah, because what Europe is, you just tip if it was like extraordinary.
Generally, it also kind of depends on the country. When we went, they never expected the tips at all from in Italy, and they almost made it difficult to tip. You had to tip in cash most of the time if you wanted to, and so we didn't tip very often. But in Vienna, I'd been a few years ago, and I don't remember anyone ever asking for tips. But in Vienna, they actually ask like, "Do you want to tip?" And they give you the thing to put in, which of course you do, because it was real service, but that was a lot different than 4 or 5, whatever. I went there 6 years ago. I don't know. Yeah, six or so
Well,
years
how was
ago.
Greece? Was Greece tip or
no? Greece. No, they never asked for tip. They also kind of like Italy. They didn't have like really an easy option. But I remember when I went years ago, and I don't remember which city this was in. I think it might have been Vienna, and a whole group of us tipped like just like some extra cash because it was the end of the trip, so we weren't going to take the extra cash. We tipped like a decent amount, like much more than a regular American service tip, but it was just because we were getting rid of the cash. And it wasn't like a crazy amount, but the waitress, she was like so happy. She was so excited. And I was like, oh man, I feel really cool. I also feel like really rich.
Well, I've heard that like Europeans, even though a lot of them don't necessarily like Americans, or that's the stereotype, I guess, that
Yeah.
some of them don't like Americans. A lot of their wait staff likes Americans because they usually tip. Like,
Yeah.
we tip here, and so they're like, oh, like, thank you, American, for coming and sitting at my table, or being seated here. I'm gonna treat you special because I know you're gonna tip. So
Yeah.
So you get a little bit of luxury there, but also their standard of living is a lot lower than the United States.
In general,
So.
there's two. I mean, yeah, the whole Europe versus the United States. There's like two completely different lifestyles. I think do you want the fast-paced, grinded-out lifestyle of America, high life, or do you want the slower pace, like more relaxed lifestyle in Europe? And that's really general. Like, of course, both both have their pros and cons, but yeah,
Well,
it's a
even like
very,
some,
very different life over
well,
there.
even in the big cities, I'd say it really wasn't. I mean, there was, times that it was very hustle bustle. Like obviously Paris and Rome were very, very fast paced and like I would say cutthroat a little bit, especially like
Mm-hmm.
driving. I didn't drive there,
Yeah,
but like in a
driving sucks.
taxi. Um, so like, but everywhere else, I mean, even big cities like, I mean, obviously Amsterdam, I guess. Amsterdam is pretty relaxed. Switzerland is pretty relaxed. Germany was a little hustle bustle. I'm trying to think of where we were.
Germany is the most industrialized,
I
well,
think
the most similar to the U.S. besides like London. I mean, the U.K. not primarily London, but Germany. Germany has sort of similar work style as the U.S., but not as nearly as extreme.
yeah. So since we're talking about Europe, prediction for 2023 on Taiwan.
Well, Ukraine.
You want to go with Ukraine? Okay.
Yeah, since we're talking about Europe.
Well, I guess Taiwan is Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
The
Well,
Taiwan
idiot
Ukraine
alert. So.
sort of. I just had to make sure for the.
Well, okay. The what Eastern world. We'll start with Ukraine then, since we were talking about Europe. The Ukraine-Russia conflict. I honestly think it kind of dies out some. I think that Russia is like, is this really worth it? I think a lot of
Maybe.
the scandalous stuff over there starts to get exposed too, but that might be for another podcast.
Yeah, I don't really have much that I think about Ukraine. I kind of think the same thing. I mean, it's already kind of fallen out of the immediate media attention bubble. Um, yeah, I kind of think that it slowly dies out. I don't necessarily think that Russia will pull
Pull back.
everyone out.
Yeah.
I think there's too much pride there, but I kind of do. I mean, if all those like crazy rumors about Putin's health and cancer or whatever are true, then I mean, he probably doesn't survive the year or the next. Definitely not the next 5 years. I think I saw something. I mean, I have no idea if this is true at all. It probably isn't. But there was like rumors that he had pancreatic cancer, and like the outlook for that is obviously extremely bad.
Mm.
So I think that's really the only way that
Especially outside the U.S. I mean,
yeah,
I guess
yeah,
I guess in Russia, he's going to have the best doctors for Russia or
yeah.
for Europe, but the
Let's see if
I
that
mean,
rumor was debunked or not.
I mean, as far as like medical treatment outside the United States, cancer is a little bit more treatable here in the United States than it is elsewhere. I could be talking off the rails, but I'm pretty sure that's true.
It sort of, yeah.
In
It's
general, I guess.
one of the general. I mean, there's a lot of critiques of the U.S. healthcare system, but I don't think there's very many places you'd rather have a rare disease than the U.S. or a severe disease than the U.S. But yeah, I think if that's the only way the Ukraine war ends, it kind of seems and the way with the advancements of weapons technologies, it sort of seems like there's really no winning in a war. I mean, no, I always say there's no winners in war, but like it just seems like it's almost impossible to take over another country with what the capabilities that we have given Ukraine or just modern military technology, unless it's like a display of overwhelming aggressive force where you're willing to lose, hundreds of thousands, millions of people / billions, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, well, it reminds me, and maybe this is where like modern warfare started to, not the video game, modern warfare started to kind of take shape of like you're saying of like it's hard to take over a place, is like the Korean conflict and oh, shoot, what's the other one? I'm blanking on it right now. Vietnam, like, and obviously the United States. I say obviously. I'm pretty sure the United States didn't go in to win those. They just went in to contain. Right, that was our foreign diplomatic agenda. I guess was just to contain, and so like we didn't go in to win. And I almost feel like that's how this Russian thing is. I mean, obviously, they're not trying to do containment, but like, I don't feel like they're going in to win. Like, if you're going into, I mean, obviously, Russian like forces and their military power is their superpower. Ukraine is not a superpower. Like, if they easily wanted to take over, they could easily do that, but they don't seem to be trying that hard.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think they could necessarily easily take over unless they implemented weapons and
Like a
tactics that would cause the rest of the world to point their guns at them.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's a little more political than just like going in and annihilating them and taking over.
Yeah, it just seems like I don't know, the warfare now is just real. I mean, I guess you could say it's never worth it, but like starting World War II, it's like it's just another level of death. Like we can't afford the amount of losses that our modern military weapons can incur. I guess eventually, like, I don't necessarily think that humanity is ever gonna lose warfare, but eventually it has to go to robots, drones only.
Yeah, but then you go to, and I discussed this with a person we've had on before, Chance, a while ago, and he brought up a good point when discussing that is, if everyone has robots, then what's the point? Like, you're just throwing resources. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about like military. You know, if you want to get down to like the grim part of it, of you're just throwing numbers at people or at the other country. I mean, you're just throwing your resources of people, and at that point, you're just throwing robots at each other. Like,
yeah, but
you don't really gain anything. I guess, yeah, you're not obviously you're not losing human life, but
yeah. Eventually, you have to. I guess eventually the idea.
I mean, obviously, if you have to another person is using like people, then that's obviously it's getting a little dark, but they're like, that's different than if you're having robots fight each other, then like you don't really gain anything. But if you're having like your robots, like, oh, we don't want to send our military, so we send robots to fight, then that's a little bit different. So
yeah.
So as I brought up earlier, Taiwan, the other European country, no, I'm kidding, Asian country, they are in conflict with China. Now, as of now, China has not invaded or really attacked, like full-scale attack.
It's like a really passive-aggressive.
Well, it's kind of similar. I mean, it's kind of similar. Both. I will say the similarities are both that Russia and China both view that they own the other country already. I mean, Russia was like, they want to annex, portions of Ukraine.
Yeah.
China wants to annex Taiwan. In China's mind, they already own Taiwan, or that's already their country. Taiwan says no. A lot of some Ukrainians already believe they're Russian or are Russian. But the majority of Ukraine doesn't believe that they're part of Russia. So like, I feel like the conflicts are kind of similar. My thought is that, and this might not be a 2023, this might be a 2024, but I think before the next presidential election, China does attack Taiwan. You might think differently.
I mean, I don't have necessarily a really strong stance or opinion on what I think will happen. And I don't necessarily think they will attack Taiwan. I think we would probably defend Taiwan a little bit more than we do Ukraine. And it sounds a little bit bad, but I think Taiwan is a more strategical defensive position for us because they essentially manufacture all the chips for the entire world right now, and that's an extremely valuable probably the most valuable resource in modern life. Maybe
it's definitely up there. It's definitely top 10, top 5.
Yeah, so I just don't know. I don't think China wants to play the is the US going to defend Taiwan or not game. It's just too risky for them. And I think right now they're in such an the government there is in such like a precarious position with the people, with all the COVID measures that have happened. I mean, they've had the fact that we've seen all the protests and stuff out of China probably means it's 110 to 100 times more extreme than what we've seen, because they lock down information out of there. And
You can't just VPN. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the Apple or the Apple employees over there, they at one point they like locked Apple employees at the manufacturing plant, and all the all the employees were protesting, of course, because there was a COVID outbreak on the premises, and all the employees were protesting, and even Apple prevented the ability to airdrop off of their phones, because that was how they were sending messages to each other, essentially. So, I mean, that's how extreme the information flow is controlled. And the fact that we've seen so much negative press out of there, and the fact that the government sort of went back on their extreme COVID measures, makes me think they're being a little bit cautious with any extreme measures that could be potentially damaging to their power.
Yeah. I mean, luckily the United States is going to build some of their chip manufacturing, but at the same time, like that's going to take 3 to 5 years for it to even start producing.
Yeah.
1% probably of the chips that the United States needs. So, yeah, I just think that if they're going to do it, they're going to do it now. With the current administration, politically in the United States, so that's kind of the reason why I say it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen before the 2024 presidential election. That's kind of like my basis for thinking that. Now, do I have any insider information on China attacking Taiwan? No.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that's kind of like my background of it.
Yeah, I could see that, but I just think it's like too late. I mean, it's not like they would take over Taiwan within
a year or two.
A week. Or I guess Afghanistan got taken over within like what, a week after we left. And so
yeah, I'd say it's a little different.
It's a little different. I think it's a little different. And I mean, the way they probably watched what's happened with Russia and Ukraine, and are like, we can't really afford something that would drag on the way that the Russian, because Russia basically assumed they could do exactly what happened in Afghanistan. They saw we were weak, pulled back, and thought they could just take over, and turns out they couldn't, because the Ukrainian people are more resilient, and then we supplied them with essentially unlimited weaponry. Not necessarily unlimited, but a lot.
To Ukraine unlimited.
Yes, to Ukraine, sorry. And I think that China can see this similar pattern would happen to Taiwan.
Yeah, I was saying the arms that were sent to Ukraine seem unlimited to them.
Yeah.
That like a place that doesn't have very much firepower gets a ton of resources from the United States would seem unlimited to them, just because of the sheer amount that we have given them. I mean, what, trillions of dollars, or is it trillions, or definitely billions of dollars?
Billions, not trillions. I mean, what is our defense budget, like $600 billion a year? So it definitely has not exceeded that.
Okay.
I think we're
maybe I'm thinking of that recent bill that's been in.
Yeah, the bill itself was like $1.7 trillion, and I think it was $46 billion to Ukraine, I think. But yeah, it's a lot of money. But at the
it's
same
a lot of
time,
money, not that much out of a trillion, but yeah.
No, yeah, it's still a lot of money relative to our defense budget. We've let's just lowball it and say $50 billion, so almost 10% of the defense budget, which
I'm sure is a lot more than what they have for their own.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's Russia's entire defense budget, I think. Actually.
Let's see, Ukraine military, they have 2019, they had $5.92 billion for their defense budget.
Oh my gosh.
So if we sent, what is that, 1,000%?
Yeah.
So on the low end of what we're describing conservative in. So that's substantial. That's unlimited to them.
Yeah.
Kind of transitioning into kind of our next topic. You wanted to discuss something about smart accessories, and
I
smart
guess.
accessories would be like, I've seen some rings come out that are smart.
Yeah, the Aura Ring is cool. So this is like
So
predictions for science and technology. A little.
yeah.
I don't really have any big science predictions for the year. I think I kind of covered a little bit of what happened because a lot of stuff in biology is always surprising. You never really know what's going to come out of the pipeline. But generally, like I said last episode, the GLP-1 agonists for weight loss will be much more widely prescribed in 2023. But then for my tech advancement, this is kind of my boldish take, is that either the Apple Watch 9 will be released or announced, and it will have a continuous glucose monitor on it, which is something I've been really excited for and hoping for in the last Apple Watch iterations, but it hasn't happened. I guess the tech is a little bit complicated, but there's always rumors swirling around whether or not it's gonna be available, and that just sort of, if once that becomes available in something as popular as an Apple Watch, I think then you sort of start to get more of a culture of consumable, like healthware tech embrace, which makes, in general, will make the population more health conscious, more healthy. So I think that's something really exciting, and I really hope it comes out in 2023. But I'm not.
You've been talking about that for a while.
I have.
At least a
excited.
year.
I've been very excited for it for the last year and a half, and it hasn't happened. So maybe the tech is limiting, but it's always.
I mean, that
it's
would
always
replace. I mean, that I guess if you got that Apple Watch that had that, or a smart accessory, I guess you wouldn't have to wear your,
the people wear the continuous glucose monitors.
On their arm, or on their arms, and then I guess you wouldn't have to prick your finger anymore.
Yep.
Which I guess those are either or.
Yeah. I wonder. I will always wonder if it's the tech that's limiting, or if it's the overly
software.
like cost. Not necessarily. I don't think software. I never really think software is limiting. Like I kind of said in what we did a couple weeks ago, like software advances really fast, while the physical world is quite a bit slower. But there also is like sort of a really big pushback, and some doctors have, against continuous glucose monitors, which I can kind of see the relevance to it. And their sort of pushback is continuous glucose monitor for non-diabetic patients are useless. I kind of disagree, but they do. There's a grain of truth. Like glucose spikes aren't necessarily bad, and so they think that when people see their glucose spiking, people will freak out and get paranoid and think they're diabetic, and overly paranoid people. Yeah, overly paranoid people coming to the doctors, filling up the doctor's office. So it's sort of the same fear that happened with the Apple Watch EKGs several years ago. So I wonder if that is something that's holding it back or not, because I'm not quite sure, or even other continuous glucose monitor companies pushing back against it.
But I mean, it's non-invasive, right? Because those continuous ones now, you obviously it's got to monitor your blood somehow.
Stick you, yeah. But I don't think they're very painful at all. I've never tried it, but
me neither. I mean, I think smart accessories are just going to continue to soar. I mean, the popularity of the Apple Watch is off the charts.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other accessories, what did you say? Or is it Aura Ring?
The Aura Ring is, I really want one. Actually, I got like a knockoff version a couple of years ago. That was my Christmas present, and it was actually a scam. They told me they would send it. My Christmas present, I got the box where I'd sized the ring, sent it in. We already paid for it. My mom paid for it, and it was like $150, $200. And the company just went out of business. They kept telling me for weeks, they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll send it to you in a couple of weeks." And I would ask them again, and they have it, and then they just went out of business. So yeah, I haven't gotten my Aura Ring instead, but I think they seem really cool. I don't know how necessarily super.
And so, what do they monitor really?
They're monitoring sleep primarily, so that you can get heart rate variability information, but I think primarily is what people want to see sleep. And I don't necessarily know how they monitor sleep. I guess part of it is how you move. Is are you restless in your sleep? Uh, are you getting deep sleep? Is sort of what the interface looks like. It says, but as these things advance, I mean, I think more and more people will take an interest in them. The Apple Watch has sleep monitoring abilities, but who wants to wear a watch to sleep? It's a
Well,
lot
and
easier to wear a ring.
my main complaint about the Apple Watch is that the battery life is not very good, or at least the one that I have.
Oh, really?
So like I need to charge it
You can
once a
charge it once a
day.
day. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so like, well, the convenient time to charge it is at night. So
Yep. Yep.
um that's kind of my main thing. I mean, I guess if it was a ring, like it wouldn't be that big a deal. It's like
Yeah.
on and off, but um yeah.
Yeah, I saw like I mean all these things they just slowly add up. They still keep getting better and better, and eventually I kind of envision like a sort of like a health dashboard. You'll pull it up on your phone like, oh, you're getting poor sleep. You need to change something. Oh, you drink alcohol before you sleep. That's probably negatively affecting your sleep. Oh, I don't know, your heart rate variability has gone down. You might be stressed.
You haven't
Oh,
exercised in 3 days, yeah.
yeah, your blood glucose is running a bit higher than normal. That's probably not the best. So
You should avoid sweets for, some time.
yeah, so you get all these sort of inputs, and there's probably more inputs that coming out eventually that I don't even not even super aware of that will be super interesting. And
Your blood
the
oxygen level, right? That's a
yeah, blood oxygen level. I mean, that's normally stays pretty steady unless something bad is happening to you.
you're on Mount Everest, yeah.
Yeah, that's also a useful thing if you have like a sort of viral infection. I'm pretty sure. So I guess some people could see on their Apple Watch when they had like a severe bout of COVID that their blood oxygen saturation was low. Uh,
Well, how
so
long until we go to the doctor's office and they say, "Okay, give me your Apple Watch. I'm going to download your health data
I mean
for the last month."
that seriously that happens already.
Oh, okay.
Not in that extreme of a form, but I mean, my own doctor asked me to buy the home EKG stuff, and then he'll just analyze it for me whenever I go and visit. So that's definitely in the future. I mean, primary care is sort of um, physicians, which have been pretty disregarded in the not necessarily looked down upon in the medical community, but it's usually not the most popular field to go into, just because it's sort of like you're not necessarily, doing the cool life-saving stuff like the surgeons are. You're not the cool guy, but I think that's going to become one of the most popular fields of medicine because you're going to be like the main frontline person working on prevention of disease, and you're going to be the one synthesizing all this information that your patients will have, at least the really good ones will. And I think that's really starting to already happen, but I think it's going to be just keep picking up over the next year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people listen to their primary care doctor anyways. And that I guess comes down to like a respect thing, but yeah,
I think that's like a very cultural thing. Is I mean, we don't really care in general about our health until
something's
something
wrong.
bad is,
Mhm.
and it's at that point a lot of times it's too late. You're already on the downhill climb. But if you have data that shows, oh, you are going downhill right now, I think you'll become a lot more health conscious. I mean, people who have heart failure or developing heart failure probably don't realize it until their ejection fraction has decreased or so much that it's causing them pain in their regular life. To walk up some stairs is exhausting for them, and so by then it's like yeah, you can recover some. We have some drugs, but it's kind of not looking good. I think in the future you'll see, especially diabetes. The easiest case is diabetes and the continuous glucose monitors. You can see that this person might be pre-diabetic from their continuous readings, and that's you get in and treat that right then. You do some lifestyle changes. You do the GLP-1 agonist that I talked about last week, uh, and yeah, I just think that's something that's going to be become a lot more of a conscious field over the next decade. It's going to be huge. It's going to be maybe the biggest part of medicine within 15, 20 years. That's my bold take on how medicine is going to change.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost what I was about to say. I don't. That might not be a 2023. That's a decade
Yeah,
prediction.
2023 is the continuous glucose monitor for the Apple Watch. It's going to happen this year. I've been waiting for forever, but it's going to happen finally. That's my hot take.
Okay. I kind of wanted to transition into car manufacturers, and the sense that I think that they are going. I don't know if they're necessarily going to crash in 2023, at least United States based. But I think that they're definitely going to be on the decline, and that is a lot due to the electric vehicle, the EV transition in the United States. Most United States-based car manufacturers are going to be like 85-90% producing just electric vehicles. And I think it's Ford. I think they're going to have like 2 to 3 models that are going to be combustion engine still. Now, they might have some models that might be hybrid, but a majority of their vehicles that they produce are going to be electric. And so this kind of transitions into like the electrical grid. I know that everyone says it's going to fail. I think it's gonna be tough for everybody. Either we're going to be getting more electric vehicles, and the grid's going to crash, or these car companies are going to be on the decline significantly due to no one buying electric vehicles, at least from them. I mean, I think the Ford Lightning has kind of taken a huge turn already, which is the Ford's F-150 variant. That's electric vehicle, but
how much is that?
I think it's a little less than a Tesla. For
really?
Lightning cost. Let's see, that's a used one. Starting out with the Pro trim is $56,000.
So I could buy one of those. Shoot.
But I've heard they're not all that great. I mean,
Really?
top end says 100K. So, which the F-150 is a little bit more of the more affordable trucks on the market. But even the Tesla Cybertruck, even though it hasn't been released yet, they opened at 45, I think was.
I think so, yeah.
Was their base model. So I mean, it's 50,000 is competitive, I'd say, but it obviously won't have like self-driving and stuff like that. But I just think that this transition's way too early, and I think they have had the rumor that I've heard is that the environmental EPA, is that who monitors the
Protections Agency?
Yeah, is that who monitors like emissions and stuff from vehicles?
I don't know. Not in my scope.
I think it's EPA. Whoever monitors emissions in the United States, I think they have put more regulations on car manufacturers to get below a certain percentage across the board, and a way to do that as well. Okay, we have all these models of cars. We're going to slim down the amount of models we have. We're going to start producing more electric, and then, well, now we don't have to put as much R&D into getting our motors to be more efficient. So our overall efficiency is higher, even though our combustion engine vehicles have stayed the same. I said, I think that's the rumor. That's the rumor I've heard.
Yeah.
As far as like emissions and stuff. But I mean, I don't think we're ready as far as the United States as consumers and the United States as in the grid for electric grid is ready for as much electric vehicles as they want us to have. I mean, look at California. I mean, California is obviously a prime example of they have more electric vehicles than anyone in the United States. And they say, hey, stop charging your electric vehicles because the grid can't handle it right now. Like they're starting to shift between you can't drive to work today, you can't charge your electric vehicle. Like,
yeah, our electric grid is not like robust to any sort of, I don't know how much of a change it can sustain. Like how much give is built into the system and the electric grid, because I feel like it cannot possibly be that much. And if Oklahoma during a cold bout, what, like last year or 2 years ago, they were doing rolling blackouts. Imagine if everyone had to plug in their car at night. It would be 10 times worse.
Well, and your electric vehicle takes longer to charge in the winter, just due to cold. Hopefully, if you have an electric vehicle, you can put it in the garage. But in the cold, you get less charge. It takes longer to charge. Just electricity does not work as well in the cold. And so, like, maybe that's who we need to get on as an OG&E employee and talk to them about the electric grid.
Yeah.
For here in Oklahoma, and I think they're in Arkansas as well. But
We can get ex OG&E employee Dave.
oh yeah, perfect. I do applaud OG&E for going more green, and the fact that, I mean, you drive around Oklahoma City and you see fields of solar panels that are owned by OG&E for the grid, but obviously you can't have solar panels working at night, and so the constant battle for energy companies in general is going to be, okay, I have solar panels. When do I need to start up my, coal coal power plant and get that going? And because, like I said, electricity on solar panels only works during the day, and so you're constantly trying to battle with, okay, the grid needs this much electricity as far as each house's, electric vehicles, whatever. How much do I need to produce because you don't want to, if you overproduce, you're losing money. It's like you have this constant, like, we want to be at 100% capacity, and or we're producing 100%, and the grid really only needs 95% or 98%. So that's the constant the two battles that they're facing right now. But I don't know. What are your take on the car manufacturers? You might not have a ton.
Yeah, I don't really have a take because I don't know much about it. I guess I can agree with your point. It does always seem like a lot of the climate stuff is always coming from a sort of like degrowth perspective, which I think is really negative. I think the only way you affect or positively impact climate change is to innovate, and forcing things on people and countries is just not gonna be effective, and it's gonna stall out the growth in the country. So yeah, that's my sort of general take, but I don't really have much of an idea.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of just spieled about kind of my thoughts. I have on our notes here to talk about Twitter and Elon Musk.
Well, that's relevant for electric cars.
Yeah, let's start with Elon, and then we'll transition into Twitter after. Do you have any predictions for Elon?
Well, I mean, it's been like a really awful last month for Elon, obviously, for like.
Yeah, he's no longer the richest person in the world.
Tesla.
I will say my prediction is the Cybertruck will start being delivered in 2023.
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, it's been what, like.
They've had my down payment for quite a while. So.
Are you gonna buy one? Have you been waiting to buy one this whole time?
I don't know about waiting. It's not the right term. We'll see where I am financially at the time mine is scheduled to be released. So
yeah,
but I don't think I'd get mine until 2024 or 2025.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I bought. Let's see, when did I put my down payment? I think it was 2018. Is when
Holy, that's crazy.
I think is when I put my down payment. I mean, it wasn't much, so
it was $100. That was just free float for the company to reinvest.
To continue R&D.
Yeah. So they're very good. Elon is very good at his marketing. He can raise money better than anyone.
Well, if everyone in the United States gave him $100,
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to play with.
Obviously, he didn't get that much, but
yeah.
Anyways, you were saying about Elon it hasn't been a good month for him.
Yeah, Tesla's down almost 40%. Tesla stock is down almost 40%, and obviously, Elon, largest shareholder of Tesla, I'm pretty sure, and so he's taking a big hit. And a lot of people think it's because of the Twitter acquisition, and he's having to sell his shares because of margin calls from the loan agencies that he used for the Twitter acquisition. So that's causing the price to just continually crumble. Um, so yeah, it's not looking great for him right now. But my my prediction is, I mean, the truth that a lot of people want to say is, oh, because Elon's an idiot and uh, whatnot, he shouldn't have bought
Anything to tear down
Twitter.
another person, yeah.
Well, I mean, Elon does stupid stuff, but he's done a lot of good stuff. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, Tesla was like massively overpriced. It was worth more than all of the car companies put together, and by like two x, I think, at its peak. It just is completely ludicrous. So it was bound to fall, and of course now it's just finally starting to completely unwind. And so the people always want to correlate it with the Twitter acquisition, and I think there's some slight correlation, but I think the
Probably
majority
not
is because
40% worth.
yeah, I think the majority is because it was overpriced, and people are finally realizing it, so we're getting out while they still can.
Yeah, I don't think he's done for the year, or I don't think. Obviously he's done for 2022, but for 2023, I think he'd pull something pretty big. I heard a podcast. I think it might have been Andrew Tate was on a podcast that I was watching, and I think he talked
Okay.
about. No, maybe it's somebody else. Anyways, they said Joe Rogan and Elon Musk should partner up, and Elon should sign Joe Rogan, and they should start their own content creation um,
On Twitter.
platform. And they said it could be on Twitter or it could be just their own new app, I guess, or own platform. But it could be
Yeah,
on Twitter. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily see Twitter as like a content. I guess that's probably the next step.
that's what a lot of people want it to be. I don't necessarily see it either. I don't know how it would really work. I know they tried before Elon with the newsletter thing. They tried to like make their own version of Substack and didn't really pan out so well. But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I definitely think people have uh, uh, spoken too early on saying Twitter's going to die because of the Elon acquisition. I think actually it's looking pretty impressive to me right now. If you muted the words Elon in Twitter over the last 3 months, you wouldn't notice anything different except they've rolled out new things like the view counts. They rolled out the paid subscription, and you didn't like it or not, but they actually did things. How often was Twitter rolling out new services over the last 10 years? It's been kind of the same. They changed the like button at one point from a thumbs to a heart. That was about it.
They added spaces. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, Spaces was cool. It's still not that popular.
They added trending, but that was kind of already a thing, anyways.
Yeah. I just think they've moved so much faster in the last 2 months. Besides cutting 60% of the employee base.
I thought it was 80%.
80%. Holy
I
crap!
think I heard 80%. I could be wrong, but yeah.
So yeah, I think Twitter's going to be pretty successful if they can weather the current storm and get advertisers back. Which advertisers will come back because I mean, I'm assuming the advertising market is priced similar to Facebook, where if no one's advertising, then the cost per ad is really low. So why not why not buy some ads if it's a really cheap price?
If the eyes are there, it doesn't really matter what their stance is, to be honest.
Yeah.
If the eyes are there, the market determines that, okay, this is high value.
Yeah. You know how many companies said that they pulled their ads off of Twitter, and then 1 week later they were right back in front of my screen.
They just did it for clout.
Yes, this is complete.
Because saying they pulled their ads is free clout or free advertising.
Yeah, free advertising for them.
How many news outlets are going to cover that?
I should have announced that we pulled our ads off Twitter.
Yeah. Maybe KOCO is going to reach out to us and I can't believe you did that. You're so brave.
So brave.
Yeah, it's just free advertisement. They know what they're doing. Being conservative, and maybe this is the algorithm, being leaning towards the right. I don't see as much screaming from the left, I guess, on Twitter as much, and maybe that's I don't know.
I think that I actually have felt like there's a lot less political tension on Twitter over the last year. I don't know.
Maybe it's
And
because
this was
Trump was
before
banned.
pre Elon,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. I think it's just tensions have sort of calmed down quite a bit, and it does seem like the whole like cancel culture stuff that was so prevalent a couple of years ago has really slowed down because we realized everyone kind of sucks. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's felt a lot calmer on the app over the last year. That was pre Elon, and
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily noted. I'm fully convinced if I didn't see the word Elon and I muted it and I muted the word Twitter, I would not know anything changed. So I saw one day, oh, I can pay for subscription. I don't think I'll do that. Oh, I see some view counts, which I actually think is kind of awesome. I know a lot of people hate it, but I like that a lot.
It's something to get used to because I keep accidentally clicking the retweet button instead of the like button.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing
But
is, it's a smart method to keep people on the platform because it shows your distribution. No other social media company besides TikTok is showing the distribution that you have.
well, they
And
actually are the opposite
what do you
because, like,
mean?
if you look at a lot of Facebook and most of Instagram
Yeah, yeah,
now, the likes are all hidden.
are
You can't
hidden.
see the amount of likes, so it's
Yeah,
actually
and
the opposite.
which I mean, there's good parts and bad parts about that. I like. Well, that's good, especially good for teenagers. I think, uh, teenage girls, especially. I think, um, but Twitter is not as a what like a pretentious. I don't know what how you would say. So less
Dopamine.
about appearance and like
Okay.
showing off than everywhere else. So it's all about reach. And now you can see how much reach you have, and you realize, oh, I'm not if I'm a company, I'm not going to get that kind of reach, that kind of native organic reach anywhere else necessarily. So I think that was a smart tactic.
Well, you've always been able to see it. It hasn't been public.
Yeah, it's the public, and now you can see. Oh shoot, this person got 1 million views on this tweet. That's kind of awesome. And so then it's just really in the public conscious now. So it's a clever move, and I think it's getting way too much hate.
Is that the new ratio? So for those that don't know, ratio is where a tweet will get more comments than likes and retweets, or maybe it's just likes. But
The
the
new
new
ratio
ratio
is
could be you get 1 million views and
you have
0
five
likes.
likes.
Yeah. Um,
Probably.
that's probably the new ratio. That's
Yeah.
my prediction for Twitter 2023. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's opposite. I think it makes people more honest. It makes you feel a little bit smaller. I'll say that. Me thinking I got 1,000 views and never checking, and now I only get 150 views. And
I swear my reach has been down over the last 2 years on Twitter, and I have no idea why. I have 700 followers, and all my tweets get 100 views. Seems a little crazy, but oh well.
yeah. Any last minute predictions for Twitter and Elon?
For Twitter and Elon, no, I think it's a successful year for them for Twitter. I don't think Elon has like an outwardly successful net worth year. Like I don't think Tesla's going to recover much. Hopefully SpaceX does something cool this year. I don't. They're kind of quiet over the last 6 or 7 months. So I love all the stuff that SpaceX does, even though I'm not a super close follower. So, but I hope that they have something cool. I remember like one of the coolest things about 2020 was the launch they did where they were the first company to send U.S. Astronauts back to space. And I don't even know when the last time we went to humans went to space. It'd been a few years, I think, since someone went. No, people are always going to the space shuttle, but anyways, first company to do it. So that was really cool, and I remember watching with the family and watching at my grandma's house, and I was like felt like a very proud American moment that we don't really get very often anymore. So
I
hopefully
think
something like that happens.
he probably is going to start selling tickets here in a little bit. Actually, he might have already started selling tickets to go to space
Oh,
vacation.
really? Space
Uh,
vacation?
I don't think they go anywhere. They might just go into space and come back. But
Oh yeah,
um,
there was like the whole cool space race, like 2020 through the early 2021, where that happened. The Jeff Bezos company took the Star Trek actor to space, and then the Virgin Airlines company, whatever the Virgin Galactic, I think, also went to space. It was just like a cool year. Like, why aren't we doing cool stuff like that anymore? I think those like inspire young people, and so I really hope something like that happens in 2023.
my prediction also is that the Boston Celtics will win an NBA championship. So
Oh.
um, I know that's completely off topic, but I figured I should give out a prediction just in case.
I predict on that note, I predict that Victor Wembanyama
Mhm.
goes to the Spurs, and I predict he will be the greatest basketball player of all time if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, I think injury is a big deal for
Yeah.
that. Um, maybe Zion will do something next year, but
Maybe. I mean, he just had that 47-point game last night, 2 nights ago. 42
you
points.
think Victor will be better than Luka Doncic? You just don't like the Mavs. Eh.
No, I like the Mavs. I just like to give all of our Dallas friends a hard time. It's a lot of fun. I'm actually really glad that Shea is playing up to par with the Luka and Trey Young of the class, and so now it's actually fun to say that Shea is better than Luka. Before it wasn't as fun.
Wasn't as troll, yeah.
Yeah,
Or it was more of a troll then. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Any other last minute hot takes before we sign off?
Nope. What about you?
No, I mean, I already said my piece about I think Cybertruck is going to start getting delivered here in 2023. I think Elon's not done. He's going to do something big content wise. I think, like I said, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he released if he like actually did sign Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan's probably going to end up leaving Spotify,
Yeah.
or they're going to kick him off or something. Like one of those things is going to happen. They're either Spotify's not going to. I don't know when his deal's up, but I think that's very real possibility. I don't know if they're necessarily going to partner, but some small platform is going to sign with Joe Rogan, or he's going to start his own platform, because I mean, he's the most listened to podcast. He's got how many viewers does he get, or listeners?
Oh, I have no idea. An insane amount, and it's crazy because I haven't listened to him since he went to Spotify. So,
let's see. He has 12.8 subscribers, 2.2 billion views.
Holy crap!
That's Wikipedia though. Sorry.
He has more reach than basically every politician could ever dream of.
Attracts 11 million viewers per episode, with Rogan posting 4 to 5 episodes a week.
Golly, he's posting that much still.
That was a year ago. So that was when that was released.
Yeah.
I don't know if Spotify
I would love for that sort of team up to happen at Twitter. Twitter to launch some sort of content business. I don't no idea what it would look like, but yeah, I think Twitter is very well positioned for growth relative to the other social media companies. Maybe they'll bring Vine back. It'll be the US.
Well, he's joked about that before, and he definitely follows through on a lot of his jokes. So
that is true.
The Babylonian Bee is a big one. He always jokes. What was that?
He bought Twitter to bring Babylon Bee back.
Yeah. He joked about that for a while.
Yeah.
It's maybe Spotify will take a huge dip because Rogan is going to leave. So
we'll see. I
need more JRE clips on YouTube. So
yeah,
I don't think he's allowed to post.
I realized I forgot my biggest take, which is probably the biggest gimme of the whole year, and I think this is basically what everyone's saying, is that 2023, the AI stuff that's going to come out is just going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Like GPT-4 is going to be, I already said it in the first episode, but just to rehash, it's going to be insane. And we're going to be pretty world-changing, and who knows what DeepMind has up their sleeve for 2023. I think they also have a large language model that's probably just as good or better, and they probably release something else. I mean, it's been a couple of years since they released AlphaFold, which I think is the best AI advance in ever. So something else is going to come out from them soon. Just knowing how good of a company and how well that team is ran over there.
Yeah. What was it several years ago? See, the thing is like I don't know how much news about AI is real, and this was several years ago where the rumor I heard was they put two AIs like on a stage or something, and they had to shut them down because the AIs were talking. They created their own language and were talking to each other. Like,
I've never heard that.
I've heard that before, and I was like, that's crazy. I was like, that's probably not true. And I mean, I don't know. Like I said, that's probably not true.
Right now, there's 3 AI companies, and really, there's 2. There's OpenAI and there's DeepMind. OpenAI owned by Microsoft. I think they have a majority share or majority stake in it, and DeepMind owned by Google. But then I also think Facebook or Meta has a really big AI company that I didn't even really know about until recently, and they did some crazy stuff where they did like this meta, or I guess they had a database of 600 million proteins. The AlphaFold did not show how they were folded or the protein structure, and they predicted those with their own algorithm. Just because 600 million is a lot of compute, so they developed an algorithm that was a little bit less intensive and but a little bit less accurate than AlphaFold. But still, like that's pretty advanced stuff. And the fact they also had the thing that I can't remember what the game was, but that could beat world-class players. I talked about it in the first podcast. Yeah, so those companies will be the game changers of the next few years, especially the next year.
Knowing Microsoft, they're going to fail, so they're going to be.
I don't know. Microsoft is very well run by what's his name, Satya Nadella. They've been very successful since he's taken over.
Did he take over during Mixer? You know what Mixer? You remember Mixer?
No, I don't really remember Mixer, but
Mixer was a streaming platform, and they paid like $60 million to get Ninja and Shroud.
He probably was the CEO then.
And then they are like, then they canceled the platform like 4 months into their contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, if that's it, then this has been Simply Technical. Keaton, Evan, make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. If you made it this far, comment frogs in the chat. So, but we'll catch you guys later.
See ya.